purpose might have been too much of a giveaway. So they've called it a common agenda, and this came out during the COVID lockdown. So here we see it's the Secretary General's vision. He has a vision, and it's going to be using effective multilateralism. So it's meant to put everyone to at ease. We're not eliminating the nation state. More on that in a moment. To better respond and deliver for the people and the planet. And it's all about delivering those sustainable development goals. And there's a major focus of this, which is a summit of the future. This will be held in 2024, so not very far away. So here we see Antonio Guterres talking about his vision. The choices we make or fail to make today could result in breakdown or a breakthrough to a greener, better, safer future. The choices are ours to make. Apparently those are the only two choices, Brian. I think that's quite significant. The background to this, it started in September 2020, an unusual time to be coming up with an initiative like this. We request the Secretary General to report back before the end of the current year, basically, with recommendations to advance our common agenda to respond to current and future challenges. So as COVID was raging, they were looking to use the opportunity to develop the ideas. Now, and what are those ideas? Well, there's several things underpinning them. First, now is the time to re-embrace global solidarity. So they were looking to use the crisis. Yeah. Right? This was at the heart of the COVID crisis. Now is the time to re-embrace global solidarity and find new ways to work together for the common good. We must include a global vaccination plan to deliver vaccines against COVID-19 into the arms of millions of people who are still denied this basic life-saving measure. So all of this is now aged very poorly, but this is what was driving it forward. And they even put in the document, in the Secretary General's report, this wonderful image. To face the coronavirus, says the protester, we must work together and listen to the experts. That one in particular has not aged well, right? The experts have been wrong and wrong and wrong again. But back in 2020, there was still enough credibility left for that narrative to be run. Now, the second issue they go for is now is the time to renew the social contract between governments and the people within societies. So this is an entire restructuring of how government works and our place within all societies all across the world. And the third, now is the time to end the infodemic plaguing our world. I think they mean you, Brian.
Okay.
All right, so you see how high up the list, there was 4, 5, and 6, but you see how high up the list the information war is and how much they're concerned that they are losing the information war.
This is the key point, David, that every time they show concern for this, what they're really saying is they realise the power of social media and it is causing them problems.
So back to the Secretary General's report, and you see here a little diagram. Everything leads towards a summit of the future, but we've got a social summit. We've got a transforming education summit. That's leading up to it. And then we've got high-level boards. We've got sustainable development, climate action, new agenda for peace. Not sure that's going awfully well. And all this huge range of issues all running simultaneously. So when you dig down into this and you get their list of things that they're going to be doing in preparation for the summit, it covers everything. This is a busy slide, but there's all sorts of subject matter in there and all sorts of initiatives all happening simultaneously. Zooming in on one or two, one, and this is talking about the new relationship between human beings and their governments, they're calling Leave No One Behind.
And they use that term for the children all the time, yeah. David, in the whole of the so-called child protection system, where the children are increasingly abused. It is Leave No Child Left Behind.
No child left behind.
Yeah.
And here, no one's going to be left alone as well, is another way of looking at it. So this is a renewed social contract again. Universal social protection, including healthcare and basic income security. So universal basic income is built in as one of the foundational bricks. It's highlighted norms. This is the key moments that they are seeking to use to transform our societies. They've also got ensure sustainable financing. So the idea that central bank digital currency might be a conspiracy theory. No, we know the UN are looking at changing how financing operates across the world because they're telling us they are doing it. It's in their documents. It's got to support sustainable development goals. It's got to be fairer and more resilient. It's got to use new business models, but they're not saying what they are. Another issue is they're concentrating on place girls and women at the centre. And they say repeal of gender discriminatory laws. But this means that they're also repealing gender protection laws. They're talking about the repeal of all laws that protect women because they're gender discriminatory.
Well, we're going to see some of that in a minute, David. Yeah.
And we're also seeing here that they're a very distorted diagram because all the proportions are wrong. But you see, global GDP can grow 50%, even though it's not shown at 50%, if we can overcome gender inequality in earnings. That's saying that women have to work the same number of hours that men have to work, right? So this is going to be coercing women into the workplace. I'm sorry you don't want to do that dangerous, unhealthy job, madam. But in order to meet our gender equality and global GDP objectives, you have to get down the coal mine. On you go. And then when we get into the social contract being rewritten, we see here the diagram again from the report, and zooming in on the central part of that, we see the individual, the private sector, the state institutions and civil society, the whole of society, are all involved in this renewed social contract, although there's not a lot of detail at the moment as to what exactly that is. And it did remind me a little bit of all within the state, nothing outside the state, nothing against the state from Benito Mussolini. This is the concept. Right? It's everything collectivized, everything working together, everything under a single point of control.
But for King's College, David, this is just too much to understand. If you ask any of the questions or the points that you're raising, now King's College is going to say, no, that's conspiracy theory. So we show the documents, we show the fact, but our poor staff, those professors in King's College, can't quite work it out in their own heads. That'll be the reframing.
That would be the reframing. Now, if that's not enough, we're into UN 2.0. The UN's not good enough. We're into UN 2.0, the Quintet of Change. Right? I thought that was a really funny title. What's the Quintet of Change? Well, it's focused on data, innovation, strategic foresight, behavioural science, and results.
And no other global organisation has the legitimacy, the convening power and the normative impact of the UN. So the UN creates itself and then it says, we are the only people that can do this.
Yes. So just dig in a little more. Here's UN 2.0, the Quintet of Change. Right? And we see here, bottom right-hand corner, behavioural science. Right? Leveraging behavioural science to improve UN family programme and policy effectiveness and reduce bureaucratic processes. So behavioural science is one of the 5 ways they're going to change everyone's society in a top-down way. And it's interesting to note that when they look into this, they refer to the Secretary-General's guidance note on behavioural science, right, which concludes that behavioural science is a critical tool for the UN to progress on its mandate. It can contribute to combating poverty, improving public health and safety, and preventing and managing crisis, and promoting gender and economic equality, and tackling corruption and strengthening peace building. And all the sustainable development goals, it's always brought back to sustainable development goals. At the same time, it's been used to make public sector more efficient and holds the potential in this area for the UN. And when looking for some examples, well, they start with Britain. And they start with an example of if you, rather than allow people to opt into pensions, force them to have to opt out, you get more people in the pension scheme. And this is very good. And they then also go on to the World Bank, because who else do you want to be controlling your
mind? Controlling your mind.
How people think and behave than the World Bank. And they say, well, it's worked very well with increasing tax compliance, because that's what we all want from our societies. And they say, well, in Poland, the World Bank found that peer comparisons increased tax compliance by 21%, but punitive language, that would be threatening people, Increased tax compliance with 211%. So if you threaten and frighten people, they will pay up to be left alone. So that's jolly good.
That's known as a racket.
Yes. So going back to the Summit of the Future, it's coming soon, 2024. There's a summit in 2023 in September that may be the same one that Mark was talking about. And this is to look at the Sustainable Development Goals. And then in 2024, there's going to be a Summit for the Future, and it's going to produce a pact for the future. And we're already seeing some initial discussions about what's going to be in this. So we see here there's a concept note, informal consultations on the elements of the Summit from the Future. So the aim of this consultation is to have an open exchange on the scope and elements for this future summit. And what's it going to do? Well, it's going to reinvigorate the multilateral system and strengthen global governance. So there is a global government. They're talking about it very plainly. Global governance to respond to current and future challenges in line with the Charter on International Law. It's going to identify and address gaps in global governance. So we're concerned that there are gaps, which are obstacles to achieving Agenda 2030. And it's going to boost the implementation of UN 75 commitments, particularly Agenda 2030. So that's where we're going. And we're going there very quickly. So by the time we get to 1 year from now, there'll be a major summit on to agree all of this, set yet more goals, and they're going to be changing the entire contract between all of us and all of our societies and states and governments. They're going to be changing the role of women, and they're going to be changing many, many things. And of course, nobody has been discussing this. It's not been discussed in Parliament, and none of us have been consulted.
But we do have elected MPs who are discussing all of this at private meetings off in the sidelines. So a lot more to be said.